The following program deals with a controversial
subject.
The theories expressed are not the only possible interpretation.
The viewer is invited to make a judgment based on all available information.
the top talents in the comic book business are here to tell everything they know.
Welcome, everybody, to another Beyond Wednesday's Industry of Comics episode. Of course, brought to you by these two guys below us, Jesse James from Jesse James Comics, Dennis Barger from Wonderworld Comics, two longtime retailers, men in the trenches of the comic book industry. And last Monday, we had an event that kind of caused us over here at this channel to take wanted to take a deeper look into cancel culture. And the one person that we all decided that could tell us what it's like in the trenches in the comic book industry with cancel culture is Ethan Van Sciver. Ethan, thank you for joining us, man.
I'm happy to be here. Just so that people know who are just joining us here, not 2 seconds before this went live, I was just yelling at everybody here, and that's why I just laughed, because it's like, now we got to complete. I was all primed up and ready to start yelling, and on my show, they heard me yelling about this. But yeah, it's a pleasure to be here with you guys. It's not a pleasure to talk about this subject. I've made talking about this subject a big part of my life, but it's nothing that but I wish I didn't have to. I wish I could talk about fun stuff again sometimes, but this is really important, and it's not going away. I think it's getting worse. Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, we talked about it backstage, but I'm just going to run over it again real quick. Monday morning, I woke up. I saw your stream getting ready to get started, and the title just blew me away. It said, "Not an April Fool's." Ed Piskor releases a suicide note, and I hit up these two guys and I said, "You guys got to watch this. This is crazy," and it just turned into a nightmare after that. You reading that note, Ethan, was absolutely heartbreaking, and there was multiple moments where you I could see you getting angry, and one of them specifically was when Ed was mentioning that he was going through a week of cancel culture. And I'm going to clip it at some point to show everybody, but when you read that, you got physically angry, and you kind of stepped back and you went, "I've been going through this for 7 fucking years." And that was just unbelievable moment in live streaming, man.
Thanks. Yeah, it was unfortunate. I woke up and, first of all, I'd been following the story because, as I said, like, Ed Piskor is no friend of mine. A lot of people right now, it's interesting to watch cancel culture happen because when he was being canceled, suddenly everybody remembered that they never liked him. I don't know if you noticed that, if you remember this, but I'm glad I documented it. Because, suddenly everybody had a story. And they did this to me, too, when I was being canceled. It was all, everybody was very friendly to me until the minute that the cancel culture train started. And suddenly everybody had a story about why they didn't like me. Somebody said I had a monkey with an Obama head on it that I put on my table at all the conventions. That's a lie. But everybody had like some kind of like reason, some horror story to tell about me in order to just kick me down. And I watched this happen to Ed. I watched everybody suddenly remember. And to me, like, knowing a little bit about Ed Piskor and his show, he seemed to have a very respectable, popular YouTube show where he would go over Wizard magazines and comic books and things like this. And he would be able to get very big guests, and he seemed like he had a lot of respect in the industry. It seemed to me that he was kind of like one of these guys who was a low-key kind of underground cartoonist, but still had connections with Marvel, and it's really a nice spot to be in, I think, for a kid like him. Suddenly, though, everybody had a story. I know he's always been a piece of garbage, like stuff like this. And I remember going, yeah, this is the way cancel culture works. Once the dam breaks, everybody has something to say. And so I'm watching all this happen. And then I might as well say it, my little brother, texted me and he said, "Ed's missing." It's like they sent an EMT his way. He seems to have written a note that is being passed around the community. It's not public yet, but I've read it. And I said, "Oh, no, well, what's going on?" And he just said, "Yeah, it really looks like it's a suicide note." I couldn't believe it. And I said, just update me as quickly as you can. So I broke it on Twitter. I might have been the first person to break what was happening on Twitter because the people who knew about it didn't want to say a word. And I was like, Ed Piskor's missing. EMT has been sent to his house. Nobody knows where he is. He left this note. I didn't want to believe. I thought he was just crying out for attention. I think everybody was hoping this was kind of like a cry of pain, which it definitely was.
Or an April Fool's joke. I mean, he did it on April Fool's Day.
That's a tough
he would
April
have
Fool's
to be
joke. Yeah.
hardcore to do this kind of thing on April Fool's.
Yeah, you were halfway through your thing, and I'm still thinking, okay, maybe this is an April Fool's, but I'm like, how can you ever come back from this level of an April Fool's joke? You just can't.
You can't.
And that's when it settled in. No, he's serious about this.
Yeah.
The letter made me realize he was serious about it. The letter is one of the most heart-wrenching letters the suicide notes that I've read. There was a moment where he calls out Jim Rugg's, knife in the back is what I call it, where Jim Rugg put out a statement saying, I will no longer be working professionally with, I'm ending my working relationship.
Even Jim.
Yeah.
When I saw Jim do that, I said, you coward. Again, I don't like either of you guys. I understand it never stops. It always goes the same way. I mean, some of my friends did the same thing to me. I can no longer abide the abhorrent behavior of my former best friend. You know what I mean? And you go, what the hell? Stand by me. And you realize that standing by me is going to mean that they're going to get the same thing happening to them. That's the evil of all of this. The idea is to isolate a person. It's to utterly isolate them. And that Jim Rugg kind of stepped away from him too. Jim's going to have to live with that. And I don't envy him. I understand why he did it. But that's going to be something that haunts him for the rest of his life. But they're good at it. I mean, this is the thing, cancel culturists, these SJWs are really, really good at pointing the finger, shrieking, isolating you, and then swarming you, and leaving you with no other option, no other alternative.
Yeah.
It
Let's
seems
go back.
like...
Look, can we go back 7 or 8 years when this started with you, and tell us, how the formations happened so that people can realize when the tide is turning against them?
Yeah, I just started to see. First of all, I heard. Well, I'll tell you what I did. I'll tell you what my big crime was. And I was being swarmed. My initial crime was that when Trump was elected, I posted a picture of myself with a MAGA hat on, and I hashtag MAGA. I tweeted that, and all of my friends from comics turned on me, swarmed me. And understand that, I wasn't used to that. I was used to being loved. I think like Ed Piskor was. I thought that everybody understood I was a Republican. Of course I was going to vote for Trump. And, when he won, I would celebrate. Just like I went, well, see you next time, guys, when Obama won. But it wasn't like that at all. And I couldn't believe it. And I deleted that tweet. But fortunately now, they screenshotted it and shared that tweet all around. Ethan Van Sciver is MAGA. Did you know Ethan Van Sciver is MAGA? Did you know this? Started passing it around, and then I couldn't go anywhere on social media without being harassed. I just couldn't go anywhere. And everything that I said, if I threw a temper tantrum, if I fought back, if I said anything that was mean, screenshotted, used as further evidence that Ethan Van Sciver is a bully and a monster, and all this. People started to concoct these wild allegations and stories about me. And then I started to hear that I was a white supremacist. And certain individuals would dig back into my past and find me making jokes about Nazis. Or talking about how I made Sinestro resemble Hitler, and the Sinestro Corps were like Nazis. Oh, he uses Nazi symbology in his comics, just like Isn't that interesting that he's MAGA and would do that? All of this stuff got spread around, and before too long, all of those people who Ed Piskor named in his note were on it. They were former Comics Alliance SJWs. Comics Alliance split up, and then they became these rogue elements that were really good. They were connected to the media, and they started to tell people that DC Comics was employing a white supremacist Nazi. And it never let up. And then the writers that I worked with at DC Comics all banded together and said they'd never work with me, and they sent a letter to DC Comics to that effect. We won't work with Ethan Van Sciver anymore. And DC Comics was kind of like, you realize this is going on, and I'm like, yeah, help me. Like, you what do we do? Well, just ride it out, Ethan. Just try to ride it out. But it didn't stop. Like, they don't quit until they're done. By the time, like, January, I remember late January, it was over the top. And meanwhile, I was seeking solace. I looked on YouTube, and I found a couple of YouTubers who weren't making videos calling me a Nazi. They were saying what was happening to me was bullshit, and it was cancel culture. And I went, who are these guys? Who are these guys who are on my side when nobody else is? It was early Young Comicsgate. It was your boy Zach. It was Captain Cummings. And I started to hang out with them to survive. I started to kind of watch all their videos, because watching their videos made me realize what was happening. I started to understand what was going on. More people reached out to me who were on the far right wing, including somebody by the name of Vox Day, who had written a couple of books called SJWs Always Lie, SJWs Always Double Down. I read those books. They were like survival guides. And then I still believed I was going to be okay. I started my YouTube channel so that I could talk and push back and fight. I wasn't going to go down like easily. I wasn't going to like just die. So I started to just introduce myself to the people and say, I'm not a white supremacist. Let me show you how to draw. Let me interview other comic creators. By February of 2008, early February 2008, DC Comics just called me and said, we're not going to be renewing your contract. And I remember the guy who did it was a good guy, a good friend of mine at DC Comics. I heard him pour a drink, and I heard the ice and everything. He had to have a strong
celebration
drink to tell me this. Just like whiskey, because it was just like he had to tell me. He knew that I had a new baby, and she had been diagnosed with autism, and he knew this could probably kill me. He just knew that it was a real. And I remember Richard C. Meyer heard about it, and he went out and got fucking drunk as hell. It was a really disastrous, hard day. And I did consider suicide. I did. But what I did was I looked at my family, first and foremost. Comics, comics, I loved comics, but it wasn't like, they weren't the most important thing to me. And then what I did was I just turned myself, I'd raised like Mormon, I'd been Christian, and at that point I was atheist. But I felt like I should hit my knees and pray. My wife, that was occurring to me when my wife said out loud, she'd never said that to me before. She said, "Do you want to pray?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." And we hit our knees and we prayed for guidance and help and everything, and turned ourselves back over to Jesus Christ again, and really felt the presence of God, and that everything was going to be okay. And from there, we started making a plan to survive this. We started building an arc, and I said, look, whatever this is that's going on right now, it's if you call it Comicsgate, then that's what I am. I'm Comicsgate. I'm Comicsgate, okay? So you want to say, this guy's Comicsgate. I am. And I'm going to do something about this. So that's how I survived it. I started to build an alternative out of necessity. I hit that dark moment too, where I was just like, I've been doing this for 20 years and it just got taken from me. And not just comics have been taken from me, but my entire reputation. I got people who think I don't want people to think I'm a racist. I don't want people to think that. Like, that's the worst thing that I could think of. I don't want people to think that about me, and now they do. And I got to live with that now. So people are going to be afraid to associate with me and all these things. It was awful. It's just awful.
Well, that's one of the things that Jesse and I were talking about while we were preparing for this show. And it's something that I never hear anyone get to talk to you about you, because it's almost so taboo to be able to laud the accolades on Ethan Van Sciver. But your name sold books. Your variants sold books. Marvel or DC picked you to do the 1 in 25 on Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo's Batman #1.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, sure.
So it's not like you did not sell. They did this against their own best interest.
They didn't want to let me go. I mean, they made that clear to me. They didn't want to. They had to because it wasn't stopping. Like there were articles in newspapers about DC Comics employing white supremacists like Ethan Van Sciver, and this was happening while they were trying to sell themselves to AT&T. It was right at that moment where it was like, AT&T, please buy us. Look, we just got Brian, what's his name, over from Marvel, Bendis. We're really exciting. Come buy us. We're going to do this and this for you. And then there's this in the media.
There's a name that pops up occasionally in your stories, and I always want to flush it out, but you never linger on it. Was it Dee Dee Myers who got hired by Warner Brothers at this time from like the White House and Meet the Press, and then all of a sudden she's at Warner Brothers and she's calling you out?
So, like Dee Dee Myers was connected to Diane Nelson, who was also a great big lefty, and the two of them were putting pressure on DC Comics to get rid of me because they didn't want MAGA elements at Warner Brothers. So that was a big thing, and I caught a glimpse of that. I didn't see very much of it. I saw an email exchange where she was CC'd in it, and I said, Dee Dee Myers? That Dee Dee Myers? Holy shit. So that's how big this was. I mean, it was really it was a big deal.
I think this is really important kind of also to the overall culture, that this is where I guess you would say left-wing politicians were being placed in high positions at corporations, kind of like what you hear in the Twitter files and this kind of stuff. I almost think this is like the alpha to that, the early attempts at that.
I don't know, man. I think about it like my cancellation happened from it was piranhas. It was from so many different angles, and there are so many different elements of it that I can't cover all of them just sitting here talking to you about it because it would bore the hell out of you. Right. But it was from all over the place. That was one of them where I just said, "What is this?" They really, really, really wanted a scalp, and I heard from some people, some private sources who said they're talking about this. You don't understand how big this is, Ethan. They really want to take you down. They. Who? Same people like this Whisper Network organization. Yes. I remember telling Dan DiDio on my last day, I said, Dan, we've been friends for so long. I said, can I talk to you in private, just at it for old time's sake? And he said, sure. And he called me up from his house. And I said, do you know, this is going to sound crazy, but do you know there's a Whisper Network organization of social justice warriors who made this happen? Do you know that that's a thing? I know that sounds paranoid. I'm not Fox Mulder, but you know that that's going on in the business? And he said, Ethan, he's like, you would be amazed at the things that I know and I'm aware of. He said, listen, why don't you come back in June? This was February. I said, June? I said, well, why? He said, just, come back in June. And I was just like, what the hell? So what happened in June? Now, Diane Nelson took a leave of absence. Yep. Because, and then she announced that she wasn't coming back in June. So, you know what I mean? Dan already knew about that.
Yeah.
And the whole thing was really mysterious. But I mean, I knew then. I said, when Dan said that, I knew he was writing a check that he couldn't cash. There was no way, this was way bigger than Diane Nelson. There was no way that the elements that were pushing to get me removed would let up. And I knew that I couldn't do that to the people at DC. I told Dan, I said, you guys were really good to me for 20 years. And I really appreciate you. So,
what's really interesting also during this time is who was Diane's boss, Kevin something? The Asian dude who was above Diane, who is in charge of DC. At this time, he's covering up his own sex scandal where he was hiring his side piece as a producer. This all came out way later, and he had to step aside.
One of the things that the reason why we really wanted to have this special is because we we kind of did what everybody did that week that the canceling was happening. You know, we talked about it. We have a segment on my Saturday night show called Comic Book Drama Alert, a throwback to, of course, Killer Keemstar and the Drama Alert, segment. And we just talk about what's going on and in the world of comic book drama. And this was a big story. And, people are saying, for the most part, that, he did some stupid shit. He shouldn't have been talking to a young girl, period. He said some questionable things. There was no real proof. But, telling him he's an idiot and throwing some public shame on him is not that bad in this situation. And people were like, when it happened, people were like, oh, you guys are part of the cancel culture. You're part of the cancel culture. And there's a difference between public shaming somebody and the cancel culture network. And I think people don't realize what the cancel culture and canceling somebody is. It isn't just publicly shaming them, throwing out some tweets, kind of giving them shit every once in a while. It's going to their house, their parents' houses. It's going to their art galleries. It's ending contracts and pulling. As soon as you take money out of somebody's mouth, that's the start of it.
Yep. Well, what was the EBS? I gotta ask you this: what was your biggest challenge? Was it the industry or the consumer? Who was your fan base? Who was the biggest challenge to you during this period?
Well, I really hated. I would do little name searches on myself all the time to see what people were saying about my comic books. And what was really alarming and painful was seeing that change from, oh, yeah, it's Green Lantern, whatever, from that to he's a piece of shit. You know what I mean? And that's something that I've had to learn to live with because that's there now all the time. So it's a good percentage of my name search, effort is going to be piece of shit. It's that doesn't feel good. That's not a back rub.
Right.
It doesn't
right.
make me want it.
Do you remember during COVID, you and I got interviewed by somebody, I think it was Dan something.
Yeah.
And I went on the show, and then he started this little narrative that I'd never heard before. And I really took umbrage to it. It's like, well, Ethan, you were fired really because you were late on all your books. And I'm thinking to myself, Jim Lee never finished All-Star Batman and Robin. That was 15 years ago. And you're saying that they fired Ethan because he was late on a couple books?
Oh, that was Dan Shaheen. Yeah. Dan.
Yeah,
Dan
He's a professional juggler now. I like him. Well, this is Dan Shaheen.
Go and get your shine box, Dan.
No, I mean, the thing about it is that a couple of things about that. The thing that happens after you've been canceled, which is salt in the wounds, is they don't let you have your victimhood. They say, you weren't canceled because we did this to you. You deserved it, and it never happened anyway. You've just, they don't want to work with you. What do you... you go, wait, you guys all swore me and attacked me. It was a cancel culture mob. That never happened, they say. And they did this to Gina Carano. They gaslight you, and they just kind of... They go, oh, what are you, a victim? You imagined this. Cancel culture doesn't exist. The culture war doesn't exist. All of this stuff, and it's really, really, really annoying. That's one of the most painful things, is it's just oh no, it's because you were late on your books and you were a jerk. It's well, everybody in comics is late on their books, and they're all jerks. Yeah. Nobody gets fired for that, first of all. And the second thing is, it's not that I was just fired from DC. I was pounded into the ground by the entire industry. You think Marvel Comics cared if I was late on my books at DC? They didn't give a shit. It's you think all these indies that were after me, all these people that were listed in Ed Piskor's note were just Ethan's late on his books and we can't abide that? It's no. I was a conservative, a vocal conservative who voted for Trump, bragged about it, and that rubbed them the wrong way. And that was it. That was all it was. And they were so... You have to go back to 2016 and 2017 to fully understand the grief that these people were feeling, the murderous rage. They said blood will fill the streets. Blood is going to run in the streets over Trump's victorious election. They were crazy. And I remember saying this to Dave, one of these guys, Dave Johnson. I said, you can't take your political grief out on me. I understand you're upset about the election, but there's going to be another one in 4 years that you can cheat on. Who knows? You can fix some voting machines, and maybe you'll. Well, that's how they felt. Like they really wanted revenge, and they chose me, and that's what happened. Completely sucked.
Yeah.
Can you, because a couple of people are asking in the chat, can you kind of give us a definition of what cancel culture is?
Okay.
And is it, one more part of that, is it different in the comic book world, or is that pretty standard across any type of genre?
It's not, it's all the same. What happened was back in 2010, there was a woman named Justine Sacco. And Justine Sacco, this was in the early days of Twitter. And Justine Sacco tweeted out when Twitter was just people were typing all these jokes in, one-liners and stuff, because that's all Twitter would let you do. So Justine Sacco tweeted out, "Hey, I'm going to Africa. Hope I don't get AIDS. Just kidding. I'm white."
I remember that.
Tweeted that out and got on an airplane. And in the course of her time going from England to South Africa, which is how long of a flight is that? That's probably 12-hour flight.
12 hours, yeah.
In that time period, the internet mobilized, faked outrage over it. What a racist! What a bigot! This joke isn't funny. It hurts people of marginalized backgrounds. They decided to research Justine Sacco. It got printed in the Daily Beast. It got printed everywhere. Every publication was passing this around, talking about what a bigot this anonymous woman was. And they found her family. They found where she worked. They found her church. They found everything about her and proceeded to ruin her life, because everybody on the internet, the entire cancel culture mob, what became the first cancel culture mob, all did everything they could and realized with joy and glee the power that they held and how fun it was to destroy a person. Because then another hashtag went out called #HasJustine_landed_yet. The entire internet, think about the horror of this. The entire internet, millions of people, were waiting with bated breath for the entertainment of Justine Sacco landing, turning on her phone, and realizing her entire life was destroyed, and then maybe killing herself. That was the first instance of cancel culture. It's not about firing someone. It's not about getting someone fired. That's okay. It's about completely destroying their life and making them feel like they have no other option but suicide. That's cancel culture. It would be as if I investigated Brian. I got him fired from his job. I told his family. I told all his friends. I told everybody that he knows that he's some kind of degenerate, and I had fake evidence and I showed it, or maybe real evidence. But I passed it all around, and I did everything I could to make it so that you couldn't even leave your house. That's cancel culture. What they did to Ed Piskor was cancel culture, because not only did they say that, there was this 17-year-old girl, et cetera, and maybe there were more, because it was just once, that would be one thing. They implied that there were many more about to come out. Then the news came to his neighborhood, pounded on the doors, showed the addresses, and implied that he was some kind of a pervert. Got his parents yelling, showed his entire neighborhood in Pittsburgh, where he lived, who he was, how you could locate him and find out more about him by talking about his art exhibit. You left him no choice. I mean, there's no choice. As I was watching this, I was like, what would I do? I would have to move. If everybody in my town in Marlton, New Jersey, thought that I had sexted a 17-year-old girl at the age of 50, and the news, they put it on Action News, which everybody watches here, I would have to move.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I don't know what I would do. That would follow me everywhere. I'd have to sell my house. My parents would have to move. Yeah. That is cancel culture. And Ed, the only thing Ed seemed to have in his life was comics, which is unfortunate, because comics are not, a replacement for family, religion, God, life. That's what he had, and they took it from him.
The sad part
That's
is
cancel culture.
With with social media and the technology we have today, it gives us all these luxuries, but it also has negative and setbacks. You know, back in the day before social media and the internet, you could move and maybe restart. Now you can't because it's everywhere. They're releasing this to the whole world in a matter of seconds. They'll find you. They'll make sure to find you when you move again and again and again. I don't even think you can move away from this these days.
There is no way out. There's no way out.
No.
Well,
And
there is. I've seen a few boomerangs happen. Those Coventry kids was, I think,
sure.
one of the few times where I saw the backlash go in the reverse.
That was fun. That was fun to see that.
Well, because it was like they had this narrative. Look how horrible this kid is. Barbara Streisand's tweeting about him. You know, all these people are trashing this kid. And then the full video comes out. And it's like, no, these guys were being harassed.
You guys were lying. Yeah.
And you guys are lying.
But their lives are they're still ruined. You understand?
Yeah, but not one person
kids,
got fired. Not one person got fired for trying to destroy those kids.
They sued and they made some money, but their lives are ruined. Their faces are known with hatred to the radical left. And fortunately, they're young kids and they're going to grow up and their faces will change. But my God, they ruined those kids' lives and they did it again, out of hatred, out of for pleasure. And that's what cancel culture is. It isn't like, Gina Carano getting fired for her views would be okay. Disney's allowed to fire you. Disney saying we got rid of her for her abhorrent views was cancel culture. Now she is abhorrent. And anybody who hires her is now doing something that Disney, Disney, a family company, would be appalled by. And it ruined her life, too. Well, not her life, but it ruined her career, didn't it?
Sure.
One of the questions that a lot of people were asking when we did our show on Tuesday night, me and Dennis kind of talking about this, was, what did Ed do to be part of that cancel culture? Because a lot of people are saying, oh, Ed was taking part in cancel culture. Ed was, being one of these people that was talking crap about you. I know he said some bad stuff involving your brother. What were the specific things that you know about that Ed was taking part in? And was there anything?
Ed was supporting the idea that I should be otherized from comics. And to me, and vocally, and, also just in the things that he was saying and doing on his show, which to me is supporting cancel culture. It's supporting my cancellation. Yeah. I think anybody would say that I don't, I should be allowed to work in comics. If you really love comic books and you look at what happened to me and you say, I don't want that to ever happen to me, then you should be opposed to what happened to me. And supporting my isolation, supporting my being shunned, supporting my otherization, supporting my being put on exile. When I did some great stuff. I mean, look, DC Comics benefited from my being there. They made millions and millions of dollars from my ideas that wouldn't have happened without me. When you see those Sinestro Corps shirts with the symbols and all the Red Lanterns, Black Lanterns, that, in an alternate timeline where I never worked at DC Comics, none of that would have existed. None of it. It was all me. That happened because of me. So I felt then, and I still feel, like I had earned my spot at DC Comics, and I should not have been canceled. But it was beyond DC Comics' control. That's the power of the mob.
Yeah.
And I don't blame DC Comics for what they did. I never have blamed them.
That's interesting.
One of the things that I know about you did, with everything going on, was crowdfunding a good outlet for you to kind of move on from that and go direct to your true customer base and other creators by able to doing your Cyberfrog and all that? Was that an outlet for you?
Yeah, we didn't have a choice, because, we had about $40,000 in the bank and that was going to run out real quick. And we just didn't have a choice. So, we sat there and like I said, we prayed about it. I talked to Richard C. Meyer. And my wife Andrea did the research about Kickstarter, Indiegogo. We had no idea how to even get started in that. But we said we're going to do Indiegogo. He said I'm going to do Kickstarter, and let's do this. I said you go first, we'll go second. So he went first on Kickstarter, and wouldn't you know it, they got him thrown off a Kickstarter, and it was scary. Oh, there's Cyberfrog. Yeah, there's our Blood Honey book, our first second campaign. But they got him thrown off, and we had to sit there and talk together, like how again we're fighting, we're surfing cancel culture. What do we do? Well, we can't come out and say that they effectively got us kicked off of Kickstarter, got him kicked off of Kickstarter, because then they're going to know they have power and they're going to come after us on Indiegogo too. So Zach lied, and he said, Richard C. Meyer, Zach, he lied, and he said, they just, I'm going to go over to Indiegogo because they just have better stuff. Or so, I can't remember what it was, but he didn't want to tell anyone what had happened. And yet it leaked anyway to the SJWs. And they did everything they could. We had a guy over there at Indiegogo who was like, look, we're against gatekeeping. Indiegogo has, one of the reasons why we exist is we're against gatekeeping. Not cancel culture, but gatekeeping. You should be able to make something if you want, and there shouldn't be assholes in your way. And so Indiegogo supported us. And even though people pushed on us and tried to, pushed on them to get us canceled, they still let us do our thing. And I think they're glad that they did, because we made them a lot of money.
Right.
The first Jawbreakers happened. And the plan was, Jawbreakers was the book that Zach was doing, Richard C. Meyer. The plan was, since we didn't know how to publish anything, Zach was going to crowdfund it, and then he was going to give some money to Antarctic Press, and they were going to publish Jawbreakers and promote it, put it through the direct market and into stores. And Mark Waid, when he heard this, approached Ben Dunn from Antarctic Press, the publisher, and in my opinion, threatened him. Said, you know what's going to happen to your company if you publish this Nazi? I'm your friend. I'm here to give you good advice.
Even though Mark had never worked for Ben Dunn in
never
decades.
Talked to him.
Yeah.
Never talked to him. And just kind of said, you better not do this. And whatever it was that he said, Ben Dunn and his brother, it made one of them, like, they called up Zach and they said, we can't do it. They were crying. They were actually literally so scared. They were crying because Mark Waid had implied that their whole company would go under if they published.
What is this
Richard
called,
Meyer.
Ethan? There's a name for this.
Tortious interference, because there was already an agreement there in place. And Mark Waid, for some reason, thought it was his job, this fucking asshole, thought it was his job to get in there and interfere. And break up that agreement. And so Zach sued him in court, which is, I don't know if he learned a lesson from that or not, but that was...
But the lesson he's had is Mark Waid has been wrong about almost everything. While trying to cancel other people, he has somehow progressed down. I know you talked about it on one of your shows, and I think your boy talked about it. He threw a comic book at me and called me a garbage human at a retailer.
I forgot about that, Dennis. Yeah,
I go back further with Mark Waid than any of you guys, and I get no credit for being Mark's first enemy.
Yeah, Mark thinks he's like comic sheriff or something like that. Yeah. I know. But I mean, that's the thing. That's what cancel culture is.
He has definitely failed downward to the point where he's so irrelevant.
Well, with cancel culture, one of the things that happens, and I think it really it showed in this what happened with Ed, is that the people who partake in cancel culture, they end up turning on everybody. They will eat themselves. They will eventually hopefully they'll just eat themselves and they'll go away. I don't know how long it will take, but they'll turn on each other. They'll turn on their friends. They'll turn on the people that were working with them to go after other people. And that's exactly what they did to Ed. And he named those people. He literally put a curse on them in that note. And a lot of those people, Ethan, which blew me away, were the same people that went after you, aka the Whisper Network. And a lot of people don't understand. I brought up the Whisper Network a few days ago on another show, and people are like, what is the Whisper Network? Can you get a little bit deeper into that and who some of those people are that really went after you, like in that network?
Yeah, like I wasn't even aware of them. They are some very strange individuals who are connected to the comic book industry on the fringes of the comic book industry. Some used to work for Comics Alliance, which is a really weird kind of, it was a weird website full of radical left-wingers discussing comic book news from a far left-wing perspective. Believe it or not, that went out of business. And the people who worked there, the writers and everything, they kind of became, some of them, Andy Corey became an editor at DC. Few others floated around in the comic book industry and began to cause trouble, trying to get work. I don't even know. Like, Alex DeCampi is a friend of Rich Johnson's from Bleeding Cool, and he protects her for some reason. She is a witch. I mean, she's one of the worst people. Like, she's one of the heads of the Whisper Network, and there are some others who are professionals who are a part of this, who support them, but it's like they're nobodies. Who's Daryl Ayo? I don't know. Like, who's
we were literally saying that. Jesse and I are both comic retailers, and when you read that list of names, you're like, do they represent even a penny of our sales? How do they matter to this industry?
This guy, Ramon Villalobos.
I had dinner with him at a retailer summit once.
I don't understand it. I think they just kind of have magnetically found each other, and they're in private rooms. I understand there's an email chain. There's a Facebook room, several Facebook rooms, and all this stuff. And that together they scheme and make plans. They tell each other what they should say. I mean, it's funny that after this whole thing with Ed happened, they found their talking points. Renfamous, all of them immediately said victim shaming. They all had the same phrases, and they all came out the same time. The same people all had the same phrases. They all came out. So they plan all this. They work behind the scenes, and we've seen them do it. We had a mole in there one time who screenshotted all this crazy stuff, and we could see like Mags Visaggio and others planning to go after Scott Snyder. Was wonderful. It was amazing to see that.
You remember, and I talked about this on our Monday night show. We had our own group, but we weren't a canceled network back in the old Facebook days. And they had infiltrated us, and we had no idea.
Oh, is that right? Do you mean Comic-Cons?
Remember when Tess Fowler? Yeah, Comic-Cons, exactly. Yeah. And I had done a screenshot of something Tess Fowler had said about you or somebody else in just a open public forum. And within an hour, Tess Fowler, who I thought was a friend, but I thought she was unhinged, as a retailer. I worked with her. She went off on me an hour later, blocked me, everything, and I was just like,
she knew about it. Yeah,
they had an infiltrator in our group.
And that group was just, we were sitting there going, we're all like conservative and we're not getting work. It's like we had no power to do anything or, hurt anybody.
Exactly.
Well,
nothing is private anymore.
We could have been a shouting network and no one would have listened to us.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is, as I'm going on 42 years selling comics, and I've watched this ebb and flow. And obviously when the internet came in, we saw this change. But on the retail level, there's such a disconnect, right? From the customer that walks in. I've never heard someone say anything about you in a derogative, negative way. Hey, what do you got for EBS? Oh, great, this is EBS. And so there's such a disconnect. And I guess I'm the oddball person in this room because most of this stuff I really don't know about. I just sell books at my store. That's it. I just drove 3,200 miles just to do the show, from Arizona to Florida because it's you're learning about this whole new region and part of the industry that I don't see because I'm so involved with my customers direct. So there's this disconnect that everything they're doing is affecting maybe you directly, but I think the modern comic book fan just wants your stuff. And that I think
that's
there is that.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, and
that's amazing.
Jesse told me, he was like, I've never had one person walk into my store, and I echoed this, say, oh my God, you carry Ethan Van Sciver comics?
Never.
I will never shop here again, and then storm out. It doesn't happen with the normal rank and file customer.
Yeah, that's why we do this show.
Yeah, they're seeking great comic book therapy, and your art provides that. What? So I guess what where did you? There has to be a moment where you said, "That's it." I know you re-engineered your family. You guys sat down and talked, but what was the time where you said, "Okay, I got this. Let's just move forward," and
Like it was
stuff
working
started to
finally.
pop off you more.
Yeah.
I hope that time happens eventually. I mean, it hasn't happened yet.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I don't necessarily, like, I still deal with this all the time. Like, look, we just got canceled from C2E2.
Yes.
I'm not allowed to go to a convention. Understand, my blacklist is deep. I mean, it's deep rooted. Like, we were, C2E2 took our money, allowed us to have a table. And we were going to be, we're going to have our big booth, me, Shane Davis, John Malin, sell our comic books, like, with the retailers. Not even with Artist Alley, not asking to be. I used to be a featured guest at C2E2. They put me on a pulpit with, like, Dave Finch and Hellboy guy, Mike Mignola. Like, that's how revered I was there. And now I'm not allowed to be a retailer. Like, I can't.
Well, and it's even worse than that. They've pulled associates, people who are just friends with you,
Or fans.
that Star Wars girl, Anna.
Well,
she's
that's the
now
whole
been-
thing. Yeah,
She's now been canceled for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah. Yeah, well, not for no reason whatsoever. These people are very active right now. And it's the same crew. I do believe it's the same group that Ed Piskor mentioned. I think that they're feeling their oats. They're really, like, out there to, because, again, like, yeah, we were just there to and they got us canceled. They got us revoked. They returned our money. We had fans flying out. They bought their tickets and hotels to come and meet us. Nope.
Right,
Well,
sure.
I can't be there. And then people said, well, it must just be Ethan. It must just be because Ethan is such a monster. Well, they canceled Anna too. And Anna didn't, we're friends, but Anna's not, like, connected to me necessarily. She's a conservative, or appears to be one, or associates with Comicsgate. And that's all it is. And understand, that is the reason why Ed Piskor had to deal with this in the first place. They turned on him because Ed Piskor associated with Comic Book Girl 19 and made a documentary with her about video games. And because of that, they decided that association, Comic Book Girl, considered a conservative, tainted him enough that they had to destroy his life. So I want you to understand, it's cooties to these people. That's all this is. This guy has cooties. This woman has cooties.
And it's fun for them.
And therefore we must destroy them.
Yeah, it's got to be fun for them because I don't see a reason for them to keep doing it. I mean, they'll jump on any situation they can. They will plant seeds and water them to cancel somebody. It's something they get something out of to make them to keep doing it. It's gross.
It's that old phrase that when you're a hammer, everything has to be a nail.
It's not even that. It's what has Justine landed yet. It's so fun. It really, like, imagine having the kind of power to utterly destroy someone's life.
One of the questions that
ruin.
When was the last con that you did?
I don't remember. No, I did Garden State Comic Fest. You guys, I have conservatives who run little conventions who reach out to me and want me to come and do that, and that's fine. I'll do those, now and then. But I can't do San Diego.
Were you part of that pizzeria problem that happened? I know Billy Tucci was in on that. Can you tell us a little bit about that? 'Cause that's another thing they do.
That was November of 2017. While I was being canceled, I was still working for DC. And Gotham City Pizza in Florida invited me out there. They're a comic book store / pizzeria. They're a lot of fun. They're really cool. They invited me to come out there and do a signing. Billy Tucci was there, others. And I received threats. And I showed the threats. A lot of people say, I got death threats. And they never... No, I showed the death threats. They said, if you show up at this place, we're going to kill you. I went anyway. You know what I mean? Because I just figured, what the hell? I can't not go. I said that I'd be there. I told my wife and my daughter Ava to stay in the hotel in Florida, and I went, and I felt okay because I was surrounded by a lot of fans, and some of them were big Marines and everything. So I figured nobody's going to kill me at the pizzeria. Right. Well, I had a great time. I drew on the wall. I drew a Batman drawing on the wall and everything, and it was beers and pizza. Signed some comic books. It couldn't have gone better. I went home, and the next morning, the guy called me, the guy who owns the place, and said they threw a cinder block through my front door, smashed the front door. And I said, "Were you being robbed?" And he says, "No, they didn't take anything. They didn't come in. I had money in the register. Nobody took it. They just threw a cinder block through my front glass door." And he's like,
Crystal
"It's
knock.
fucking unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable." And Comicsgate was becoming a thing, and we just raised money. He's like, "We're gonna have to pay." I had a vacation fund. We're gonna have to pay for the door out of the vacation fund. Like, these are families, you know what I mean? So we raised the money to fix the door. That was the first thing. The first crowdfund that Comicsgate did was a GoFundMe to fix his door, and we raised $1,200 and took care of that. So I was proud of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what's amazing is when I was running Phoenix Con, we had you out, and your lines were tremendous. And I remember talking to you, and you were having a great time, and we always put you on a corner so your lines go long. So it is amazing now that we're in this world where those comic book fans just want to see you. And then you have these cowards that wait till after you leave to throw this brick through someone's window.
Yeah, they didn't even want to confront us, really. They just threw a fit, like, it was weird. It was really bizarre that it's like this. That's cancel culture. So the idea is, again, to make people hate you enough to want to hurt you, and then to make you afraid to leave your house, to make it so that you're unemployable, to do all these things. Now, I've been dealing with this for 7 years now. Since I say my cancellation really happened February of 2018, because it's actually started before that, but that was when I knew I didn't have a job anymore. Surviving that has not been easy. I've had dark thoughts. I think I'm a different person now than I was then. I describe it as I have a pilot light of anger in me all the time, and I don't suffer fools well anymore. And I'm a different person than I was.
You can even tell in your live streams, in your content. You go back to old content, you sound different, and I think there was maybe a point where you were like, just screw it, I'm going to lean into it. And you came on this channel when John Malin released when you released Black Riding Hood, the Malin cut, and it was this whole issue, and it caused a little interesting thing here on the channel where everybody was kind of going after the channel and saying, "Oh, you platformed John, you platformed EVS, and he's a racist. These guys are racist. These guys are misogynists. These guys are homophobes." And I've always been a fan of your art and comic books, but what it did is it caused me to go watch your stuff and say, okay, if these people are saying that these people are racist, homophobes, whatever, misogynists, I want to see the evidence of it. Yeah. And what I saw is gallows humor, sarcasm, and
sexism. Lots of sexism, yes,
and lots of pie.
Yes, yeah. We'll cop to the sexism, absolutely.
Yeah. And it just made me a bigger fan, to be honest. It caused me to really start following you guys. I think that happens with a lot of people too. A lot of people that are watching this show right now that are Beyond Wednesday's subscribers and viewers, they don't know about this stuff, and that's why we wanted to have you on to talk about it. And like Jesse said, it's a totally different world in a lot of stores and on the trenches than it is in the social media world.
When we start talking about these things, like Whisper Network, tortious interference, night letters, I want you to explain night letters as well. They're like, oh, this doesn't exist. Oh, this doesn't happen. Oh, and it's like, because they've lived in the echo chamber on the other side, whereas I've seen these things manifest themselves, and you've called them out. And so it's about having people understand what happened to Ed Piskor is what they've done to so many men before.
So many people, like
Warren Ellis.
What did Warren Ellis do? All Warren Ellis did was what rock stars do with their fans. Adult women, he wanted to sleep with them, and he's allowed to do that. So
they threw themselves at him.
Yeah, of course. You're allowed to do that if you want to. Yeah, night letters are weird. I didn't understand. See, when it was happening to me, I was in denial about it and didn't understand. So there are videos of me going, cancel culture isn't real. This isn't happening. Because I didn't know what was happening to me. I didn't understand it. And I was like, this would be crazy. If what people were saying was happening to me was happening, this would be insane. But what happens is you start to get letters from people that are you get emails, you get messages, whatever. And they say things like, listen, I understand that you said this, or you feel this way, or you're associating with this person. If I were you, as a friend, I would just tell you that you should not do that. You should not associate with this person. You should not be saying things like this. You shouldn't do this, because it's going to be bad for your career. It's going to be pretty bad. So as a friend, I'm just warning you. And that's usually the way they're phrased, so people don't identify what they actually are. There's a thing where they say they'll basically say, like, either do this or this is going to happen to you, and it's a very subtle and implied threat. And those are night letters, and I got a bunch of them when I started when people saw that I was associating with Richard C. Meyer. I just want you to know that he's harassing your peers. And you hanging out with him, not a good look. And I will tell you that if you continue to associate with Richard C. Meyer, it's going to be very bad for you. It's going to go badly for you. So as a friend, why don't you stick with your peer group, which are these creators, and stay away from a guy who's harassing them. And you get messages like that, tons of them. I don't react to those well. Now, I get those still to this day, in certain other situations, and I go nuclear when I get those.
How many night letters do you think Jim Rugg got to make that statement?
Tons.
Against Ed?
Tons, I'm sure. You ask Jim.
I smelled it on that tweet.
Yeah, like, when are you going to, oh my goodness, like, when are you going to denounce Ed, and all this stuff? Like, you should really back away from Ed,
And we talked about this on Monday, and Brian, you absolutely agreed with me. This has everything in it except for the one thing. I still am friends with Ed Piskor.
Yep, and I support my friends.
Even though I'm severing my working relationship with him, I'm still his friend.
And I love him, yeah. And
I
that
love
wasn't
him, or
there.
whatever. That was totally gone.
Yeah. It was cowardice, in my opinion, and I hate to say that, because at the same point, I know everybody's saying, "Oh, they deserve their day in court. They deserve their chance to stand up and respond." I'm sorry, man. When Ethan was reading the letter and he got to that point about Jim, when Ed said, "Jim, that one really hurt, brother." Like, I literally made a note to myself to call my best friend and tell him, "Hey, man, I just want you to know this shit happened, and I would never fucking do that to you. I would never do that to you. And I just need you to know that." Like, that's how much that shit, like, really.
You know what I like about it, too, in Ed's note? Like, he said that hurt, but he still said, he still associated with Jim, like, we're still friends.
Yeah.
Like, we're still friends. Like, so I'm going to ask you to do these favors for me.
And what I got out of that was Ed forgave Jim.
Yeah, for that.
Did not forgive those other people.
No.
He understood. No. Like, you got to, when it's happening, see, this is the thing. It's so disappointing. I'd say one of the biggest things about cancel culture is you get disappointed by everyone. You just go, where are the people who are going to stand by me? Are there anyone? No, not even your best friend will. And you will be canceled. When they target you, it's going to work. Jeff
Johns never came out against you. Ever, right?
No, he never said a word, but not in my support either.
Right.
He just said, whatever.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's disappointing. I wanted DC Comics to make a statement, and they just wouldn't do that either. Like, nobody will. You can't expect it. Everyone's going to let you down, and you got to be ready. You are alone. You are the reality of it is when it happens to you, you are alone, and it doesn't matter. I mean, again, this is the thing about Comicsgate that I think is good, is that you're not alone with us. When it happens to you, come join us, and you've got a whole group of friends. You're not going to be alone. We will stand up. We will stand for you.
That's one of the things that I wanted to talk about tonight, because I watch Comicsgate Kings. Is it Monday night?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's a stellar lineup. How soon and how fast did your brothers, now the fellow kings, start to come over to Comicsgate with you?
It's not just that they've been canceled. I think that it took a while for them to realize like this is where they should be. A lot of them had heard stuff about me, and were questionable. But I think that what it comes down to is when you become Comicsgate, you get in the same hot water that I'm in. And to me, that earns my eternal gratitude and respect. You're like, I'm now associating. I'm on a screen with 9 other people, and one of them is Ethan Van Sciver. Thank you. I'm not. I don't expect that from people. When you do that, you're going to obviously look at Anna. You're going to get canceled from C2E2. That's a sacrifice, But I mean, you're doing it for the right reasons. You're standing up. You're being brave. You're one of the people who would say "fuck you" to the people who canceled Ed Piskor. And I want to see more of that. I want to see more people just kind of canceling cancel culture by associating with the victims thereof.
Stand up
and
for
I think
yourself.
that's a really good thing. And that's one of the things that Comicsgate is trying to do is undo cancel culture by making it so that it isn't the end. It's not the end of the road for you. You don't. You don't have to. You don't have to take a drastic step like Ed did. I still think about that. I go, after a week, Ed, after a week? It's like, it's infuriating in a way, like, because I am him, and it's like, after a week, your family, like, I think about, I can relate to him in ways that maybe other people can't, and so really, it's a very complicated thing that I feel about this whole thing. It's really complex.
But the thing is on his side, he doesn't have brothers in arms. I mean, when I see, Comicsgate Kings and all the branch off CG shows, you've got an army of 300 Spartans. You're able to stand up to the Persian army. Yeah, sure, you're going to take a couple hits, with C2E2, being dickheads. And hell,
but then you start Comicsgate Con. Yeah, start a CG Con, which I hear there might be talks that you guys are doing that. We
got to do it. I want to get you involved. Jesse James, I want you involved, my friend. I want Dennis, I want you involved. Brian, I want your help. I don't know how to do a convention. You guys do. I don't know how to do it, okay? I'm just me. I'm just some dude from Jersey. I've never done this before. What I can do is I can organize a crowdfund to raise enough money to pay for it and to get people invested in being a part of it. Everything else, I don't know how to do, and you guys do, and I need your help. And we need to organize something called For the Fans Fest Florida, and we need to have it ready for next year, and we need to get started doing it now. And C2E2, listen, I'm busy. I got a bunch of comics that need to be done. I'm trying to manage everything all at once. It's a lot of work, and I need allies. I need help. I need people who are willing to say, this is important. When C2E2, an enormous convention that shouldn't be banning anyone, there's such a big convention, they should not be telling anyone that they can't go, they can't participate. There's no way that can happen, and the fact that it is happening means we have to do something the equivalent of Comicsgate in comic book conventions. So that, no, there is a big place that you can go to, as big as we can make it. I don't know how big, maybe it's going to be small, I don't know. But we got to do something, and we got to make a convention where fans can come and meet those of us who have been disinvited from polite comic book society, which, as it turns out, contains murderers, actual murderers, according to a victim. And those people are making the rules. We can't allow that to happen. So I got to ask you, I got to ask the people watching you now, I got to ask the people who are watching me on Trashcast right now, simulcast. We have to do this. We have to do it. And I can't do it by myself. I'm not capable of it. I don't know how. So it's like, for me, it's like calling all fucking cars. Where are you guys? If this matters to you and you are angry about what happened to Ed, and you are angry about cancel culture, what happened to me, if you're supportive of Comicsgate, or if you're just supportive of the idea that people shouldn't have their lives destroyed because of a bizarre, ugly, spirited band of misfits that take pleasure in destroying people's lives and driving them to the brink of the suicide, if not over the cliff. If that irritates you, I need your help. I can't do this alone. And so, for the Fans Fest 2025, I think we should organize it. I think anybody who's got a problem with me personally, I think just let's stay away from each other. But bygones should be bygones to make this event happen, because everyone's going to be invited.
Yeah, and
we're not going to keep anyone out.
Right, and what's funny about creating a convention, it's all about what you just said. It's about passion to be successful so that fans can come enjoy themselves. And not being able to see at C2E2 is just bullcrap. But regardless, you create that venue that everybody is welcome, and where they have some fun, where they sell some books, or then get some handshakes, or then get some pictures. And so I think it's very doable. And you just have that passion to do it. And there's plenty of people. Brian always knows what I say, and I've said this to Dennis. It's all about allies. This whole industry is about allies. I'm one of the first stores in history to drop Diamond at its peak when I didn't have to drop them. I couldn't buy comics new issues for 2 years because everybody banned me. But at the end of the day, you know what? I gave my customers great comic book therapy. I was passionate about being successful to those people that wanted to be part of my comic book store. So it's very exciting to see your passion on that as well. Not just saying, oh, let's just do it, but here's the mission statement on why we should do it.
Yeah, I think it's become more like important now than it ever was. Before it was just like, let's just do it for fun. Now it's like we have to do it.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
we're
it's
being told no.
It's like Dave Rubin says, you know, you have to create parallel economies because they're not going to let you participate in their economy, which this whole C2E2 thing just shows. But, you know, you were at my first show, Ethan, Detroit Fan Fair 2010. And that all came about because I was banned from another convention for speaking my mind about what was not right and what was wrong about my local convention.
Yeah.
You know what I'd like to see, Dennis?
It can be done. It can be done, and it can be done very easily.
Dennis, I know you're in Detroit. I know John Malin's a Detroit boy. I'd like to see maybe some John Malin Wonder World Comics appearances soon. I know it's people make fun of John for trying hard to get him out of the house, but let's make that happen. And of course,
well, absolutely. I don't have his contact. I have EVS's phone number, so I can call him. But make sure I get John's number if he wants to do anything.
Let's go. Let's get it done. Let's start doing this now. Are you willing? Are you able? Are you interested in this?
I told you the first time you mentioned for the Fans Fest, I've got 2 or 3 giant boxes full of just Comicsgate artists that I can build an entire wall with just nothing but CG. That's actually
awesome.
Well, in my store, I tried to tell you, I gave up new comic books. I only rack 80s and 90s comic books on my wall, and they sell. I'm doing a very healthy business without new comics. You know why?
Why?
Because I have Shane Davis. I have Fraga. I have Ethan. I have all of these artists on my wall that every other comic book store in the country doesn't have on their wall.
Amen.
Well, I mean, listen, we'll be the guests there. So this is the thing. You want to sell Marvel and DC and Image books that, we all worked on. I mean, I think you're going to do very, very good business, and we should encourage other retailers to join in and be a part of this as well, and to try to push back and just make it not a thing and stop. There doesn't need to be segregation along political lines. There really just doesn't need to be that. And I never thought that there were, but it started happening and. Some people are always going to want it to be that way. I don't think it needs to be that way, especially when it comes to conventions where there are get-togethers about people loving comic books, wanting to meet the creators, wanting to interact with us and each other and just have a good time. So I want to get started on this week, and I'm very serious about this. I need to know where to begin. We need to find a place to do it, and we need to make it. We need to do it. For the fans.
Well, that actually brings up another thing. And I just saw this week, and it was actually some of my left-leaning friends were mocking it. But I don't know, Brian, if you can pull it up, if you even heard about this, but Dean Cain and a whole bunch of kind of Christian sci-fi actors are putting together a convention of their own right now.
Oh, cool. Is it like
Kevin
canceled?
Sorbo?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
It's Kevin Sorbo. It's all the guys who get canceled from all
Gina
the shows.
Carano.
God. I don't want it to be that way. I don't want to emphasize that, these are people who have been victimized by cancel culture. I don't want it. I don't like talking about my own cancellation. I knew that's what we'd be talking about tonight. I talked about it to death. I don't want to talk about it, but in light of Ed Piskor, we're going to do it again. I want us to create something glorious that isn't like, concerning or because of being victimized. I want to do it because we have to, because it needs to be done. And that's it. We need to create a convention. It doesn't need to be only people who've been canceled. I want to invite everybody to be a part of it. And I want it to be exciting and fun. And a good reason to get together, come to Florida, have some beers, play some music, and just party, dude. Just have a
100%.
great time with comics.
Well, and that's, I know you're sick to death of this, but when I was hearing you read that letter, I was hearing echoes of all the times that you talked about your early days after your cancellation. But I really wanted you to come on because I want people to understand. When you heard Rob Liefeld talk about the eye of the storm and all of that stuff, you lived it. You came out on the other side. You were strong enough, and you had enough of a plan that I think you're the definition of thriving after. You're telling me everyone on that Whisper Network wouldn't kill to have the $3 million Kickstarter that you did for Cyberfrog?
Not 3 million. 1.47 is my biggest.
Yeah, but I think all of yours equal up over 3 million, though, don't they?
Over 8 million.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Oh, over 8 million. So, but I'm telling you're telling me none of those nobodies would kill to get.
Yeah, of course they would.
Of
course, that's infuriating for them.
You
I'm
did
sure.
it on your first try. You broke $1 million on your first try.
Cancel culture is full of jealousy and envy and greed, and that's what they strive for over there for whatever reason. They become what they hate, and hopefully they'll continue to eat themselves. Hopefully it doesn't happen in suicide, though. I think everybody needs to realize what you said is that there are people out there that are willing to help. Hopefully you have family, friends that you can turn to, like Ethan did with his family. And what is really important, and that's one thing that's very interesting, is that you always say is that comics are important, but they're not everything. What's everything to you is your family. Everything to you is being able to hang out with your dad at a Phillies game, or, take your wife out for, her birthday, which you couldn't do, that stuff. So
if I had taken the, I don't want to say the easy way out, but if I had hurt myself when it occurred to me, this wouldn't exist. Cyberfrog action figure.
There you go.
So it's like simple things like that.
Yeah.
I want people to understand that no matter what you're going through, tomorrow is another day, and it may seem absolutely black right now, and you can't see the end of the tunnel, but keep going, because you're going to see light. And life doesn't. I think life rewards persistence, and there's no reason to give up. You are loved. People love you, no matter who you are. And I wish I don't know what Ed was suffering from, like depression, whatever caused him to give up that quickly. Man, I wish he hadn't, because I think that I think things would have gotten better for him.
Yeah.
And he would have enjoyed the rest of his life. So I'd say that to everybody, not just people in comics, but don't do that. You're going to not only are you going to hurt a lot of people, but you're going to miss out on something wonderful. Yeah, and life has gotten better. Since I was canceled, I've made a lot of money. I'm doing my own things. I'm making toys. I'm making comics. I'm a big part
sponsoring a race car.
Sponsoring a NASCAR race car for this month, and in Dover, I think a few weeks later. I'm having a great time, and I join us. Like if you're in comics, and join Comicsgate, you'll make friends, and we'll make things feel a little bit better for you. But
So,
yeah, there's a future.
So, with everything that you talked about, tell me about your actual passion for comic books. Just in general, as a creator for 20 plus years, what is your passion today about comic books? Forget about the cancel culture and everything else. What drives you?
What drives me is when I was 12 years old, and I found John Byrne, and I found Todd McFarlane, and I found Dale Keown, and I realized that this is what I was meant to do. I can go back and some of the more modern comics that are coming out now are not really my thing, but I'll tell you tonight, somebody retweeted an image of like the Mole Man standing over a bound Ben Grimm, standing over him going, the Mole Man thus saith that John Byrne had written it and drew it. And I don't care. That stuff sets me on fire. I love that stuff. And it's just like music. I think the music that you first met your first girlfriend to in high school, whatever, that's the music that you love forever. And the comics that you find when you are 12, 13, 14, and 15. There it is. Yes. Yeah. It's so good. I mean, that's the stuff that stays with you. And just, when I get down on myself and I feel like I'm no longer connected to this thing that I love so much because I've been exorcised from it,
Yeah.
I can look back at those comics and still feel that connection. What I also love is just letting people tell their own stories now, and I love Cyberfrog. I love telling Cyberfrog stories.
Did you grow up in a comic book store in your neighborhood, or?
Yeah, no, I mean, there was a place called Blankenbush Drugs that was like a drugstore in my neighborhood where I would scrounge for $0.75 or $1 to go buy. Right. They were 75 cents to go buy a comic book every day. They had like a magazine rack over here, and they had a couple of Playboys over here.
Yeah.
That when the guy was in the back room smoking pot, I'd go and I'd open it up, take a look, and be like, whoa. Yeah. One time he came out and said, "Those aren't for you." I ran out of there. I was like 8 when that happened. But Blankenbush Drugs. I used to buy my comic books there, and I don't know, it was the newsstand essentially. And I didn't care. As long as it was Marvel, I bought it. I bought everything Marvel. It's fantastic.
We've had a lot of creators, artists, writers on the show over the last couple months, and the important thing about a lot of those creators is, and that I love, is that they have that excitement when they talk about it. You can tell they're still excited about it. Yeah. When they talk about John Byrne, when they talk about Marvel in the 80s, when they talk about Captain America comics that they grew up on, you can tell that they're excited to talk about it. EVS, Rob Liefeld, Brian Pulido, that is Billy Tucci. They talk about it. They're still excited, and you can tell. There's no denying it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you have to have that passion to keep selling comic books like all of those guys on that list.
Amen. Yep. So, well, Ethan, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you coming over here and doing this. This is a very important episode for us to talk about, and I know I'm all in on helping however I can to get the con going, and I know these two guys are into it.
Yeah,
let's do it.
Let's make it happen.
Hell yeah.
We got to get a convention going. Thanks to the chat. I appreciate you guys. Be on Wednesdays. I'm gonna head back to my own show.
I forgot to do one thing. Hello, Comicsgate.
You got to say hi, Comicsgate. For some reason, that's trouble for some people. Thanks very much, guys. I'll see you again soon. Bye.
Appreciate you, brother. That was good shit, you guys. Ethan Van Sciver.
Are we gonna pop over to the Discord after we wrap this up, Brian?
Yeah, we can pop over to the Discord and do some talking. I know there's a lot of people in the chat that might want to hear hear us talk about stuff. And if we do this, you guys, I don't want there to be any yelling. I don't want there to be any hating. This is what we have these conversations so we can go jump in the Discord. If you guys don't know, the Discord link is in the description below. It is free to join. It is free to jump on. There is a live show lounge that we're going to jump in and try to have some decent conversations. Please do that, and appreciate everybody that come and hung out tonight. And
I just want to, I do want to wrap up though a little bit, because I just want to go over what I said was this. To me, we needed to have this because when you hear a narrative start coming around that, oh, this is what really killed Ed Piskor. Comicsgate didn't kill Ed Piskor. No one in Comicsgate did. I think what you heard Ethan saying, and I'm paraphrasing, his own people turned on him. He didn't care what Ethan had to say. He didn't care what John Delarose had to say. He cared what his people had to say, and they turned on him. And the same thing happened to Ethan, and that's why I wanted to have Ethan come on and explain that echo chamber, explain those mechanisms that are grinding to try to tear you apart. And I just wish if Ed had surrounded himself with people who actually cared about him, he might have had that support structure. But, obviously it didn't happen that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you got to keep in mind the biggest fear for most people in that time of need is asking for help. It's a very tough thing to do. I as a retailer for so long, I've found myself in the store at 3-4 a.m. because I didn't want to go home and talk to my partner about it. And it just, I just keep in the store and it'll be a better day tomorrow. But I think what we want to look at is a platform that we provide that we can have anybody on, and we're not choosing sides on anything.
Yeah.
This was something new for me. I'm not part of this world at all. I'm just a person that sells comics in a retail store. I never heard of Comicsgate till you guys told me about earlier. And that's cool. I think everybody should have an outlet to hang out with people that are like-minded. I think that's very important. But to be successful, you do have to, in those moments of need, have a supporting ally cast of people you can call 24/7. I think it's very, very important.
And that's why I'm doing this show with you guys. You guys are guys who've had my back. I love you both as brothers, and Jesse and I have chewed a lot of dirt. Brian and I have chewed a lot of dirt recently. And you have to surround yourself with people who have your back. And I just want to thank you guys for having my back.
Yeah, thank you, man. Appreciate you. Another thing that's very important to say, I think, at this moment is, it's okay if all your friends or your acquaintances don't get along. It's okay if there's certain things that you don't agree with your friend. That doesn't mean that you have to not hang out with them or turn your back on them or treat them like shit. Like, we're not going to all get along on every single fucking point. That's the important thing. That's why we have these conversations. That's why I do this channel. I enjoy hanging out with friends and acquaintances and allies, as Jesse says, and talking about comics. And I love the comic book industry and the comic book world, and I want to keep it going. And listen, there are some very positive points to jump on when it comes to the comic book industry right now. We have some great new comics being written that are written well. There's not a ton of them, but there are out there. Shout out to Ghost Machine Imprint and Jeff Johns and what Brian Hitch and Jason Fabic and Gary Frank and those guys are doing over there. Shout out to Coffin Comics, of course, and what Brian and all those guys are doing over there. Shout out to Robert Kirkman and what he's doing with the Energon universe right now. It is fan-frickin-tastic. So those are things that are very important and positive to talk about, and we keep continuing to create comics and getting it in people's hands that want to read comics and love to collect comics. Important.
Yeah, and I think in the world that when you're a retailer in the trenches, that's your job, is to sell comics. 99.9% of the consumers I deal with, whether it be live shows, which I have to do a live show right after this show, or at the retailer level, or at conventions, or just walking around. Rarely, I've never. I'm trying to remember the last negative conversation I had with someone about anybody in the comic book world, because most people are coming to me for comic book therapy to get away from everything, not to bring it all to me. In that kind of cool, I always tell this story about when you see someone yelling in their car and they pull up and they slam the brakes and they slam the door and they're on their phone and you can hear them yelling and screaming. They open up the door and their face lights up and they're happy and, oh, can I get my pull box? Oh my gosh, I can't wait for Ghost Rider. And that whole world disappears. So I think the comic book world does provide that. And so that's my goal. My mission is always just to make sure that I'm taking care of the customer, getting good product in their hand. And I think that's a good plan in the comic book world. But all this other things that go on in the comic book world as well is part of the industry. And you don't want to ignore that. But at the end of the day, listen, you meet thousands of people. In 42 years, I've met thousands of people. But there's 10 people I would call, right? Your allies get very, very small. That team gets very, very small. So everybody out there, I've really enjoyed reading all the comments because they're all over the place. But that's what's great about opinions too, right?
Yeah.
We're not here to cancel.
I have the only comic book store in the country where my mortal enemy, Mark Waid, literally sits on the shelf next to Flash Rebirth with Ethan Van Sciver covers. So it's like I put my money where my mouth is. I hate Mark Waid, but I'll sell the shit out of his books if somebody wants to buy it. Sure. And guess what? I'm not going to not put Ethan Van Sciver flashes next to it. It's up for the customer to decide. And that's really what this boils down to. We always hear the phrase, vote with your wallets. I vote with my wallet when it comes to buying new books. Oh, God, I can't even think of his name right now. The big comic book creator said, if you voted for Trump, don't buy my books. And I just said, okay, I've supported you. He knew I supported him. I don't carry his books. I don't buy new books at all now, but for a long time, I didn't buy his books. I will rack whoever can be sold.
Yeah.
I will sell whoever's books customers want to buy, just like Jesse.
And the great thing about that, comic book fans, if they walk in with $50, they're spending that $50. They're going to find something for $50. So in the store, and that's that. Again, the comic book industry has so much to offer everybody. They have to make those decisions. Scotty Young fans, they probably haven't read a comic book in 10 years, right? But they have these
just look at the covers,
right?
We real quick before we call it a night, there's a lot of people saying that we should address the chat, okay? And a lot of people in the chat saying things. So I'm going to bring up a couple of things and we're going to address some of the chat. And these guys in the chat, if I bring you up and you have a negative comment, I just want you to know I don't look at it in a negative way. I'm not looking at you guys as being an asshole or anything, so please don't ever take it that way. Starting off with another retailer that we have a lot of respect for and that we've had on the show. Emmett from Haven for Heroes says, I'm feeling that this was a puff piece. And I get this a lot. I get this a hell of a lot. Whenever we have somebody on the show that people want us to go at or to ask hard questions or to, like, Matt Nelson or anybody that would bring on Drama or, we had Epic Nation on with that whole thing.
I'm on the show. I didn't say that.
Yeah. But so here's the thing, you guys. For the people that I have respect for, I'm going to treat them with respect. For the people that I have respect for what they've done in industry, I'm going to treat them with respect. For the people that, hey, maybe I want these guys to come back on my channel, on my show again, I'm going to treat them with respect. So if you guys ever think that there's something that's a quote-unquote puff piece, that's not what we're doing here. Like, we want people to want to come back on the show. We want people to want to tell people that they had a good time on the show. For example, Jesse, I believe, one of the things we were supposed to have Murat on last week, and, Rob Liefeld reached out to Murat and let him know, hey, go, it was a good show going. That's what we want. We don't want people to go, these guys were assholes to me and you should never go on that show. We're creating entertainment.
And I just want to
say
something. Emmett, we had you on 3 weeks ago. We talked to you about your feud with Ethan and Comicsgate.
Yeah.
You had the forum. Now this week opportunity came around for Ethan to have the forum. We don't care. I call both you and Ethan my friend.
Yeah.
But it's the first time that somebody, I tell this to everybody. I told this to my ex-wife. The second you give me an ultimatum, I'm going to choose the opposite.
Yep,
that didn't give me an ultimatum.
John Horn says, your shows keep getting better. Keep it going. Hey, thank you, John. Appreciate that. And I appreciate all the new subscribers and the new viewers to the channel over the last couple months. These guys and all our regular contributors to this channel have been amazing in the last 2 years since we started this channel, and I can't thank them enough for their support and creating great content with me. So appreciate
and
them.
I think people should also understand in this industry, it's not, if you look at the list of the last 10 people we've had on, those are relationships we've had on for years, for decades.
Yeah.
If we did not have, if we just started a show, we probably wouldn't get these people on. So I think at the end of the day, we're then asked the questions that arise, we're then pivot when necessary. But I don't think we are going to be a show you'll see that our intent is to throw people under the bus. Let them speak.
Yeah.
Let them speak their mind.
Brad Selden says you could have had some different opinions. I didn't have any different opinions. If I had them, I would have said them. What I said about Ethan and Comicsgate is true. Having John and Ethan on the channel over the Red Riding Hood, Black Riding Hood book, and that whole thing that happened, and having people calling me, not only did I have people that were calling me a misogynist and a homophobic and racist, at the same time I had people calling me a social justice warrior, a snowflake. Like, both sides were coming at me, and I don't like, what is that going to do at this? It's going to make me, especially as a man, it's going to make me go, for a second, it's make me go, fuck you guys. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I'm going to go, okay, I could say fuck you guys, but I can also say I still love you guys. I want you to come hang out with us and have a good show and talk to us on Discord and this and that. There's something to be said about treating people a certain way and then the opinions you have at the same time. So,
well, and Ethan said it. I got called after 2016. I got called a white supremacist by a fairly important person in the comic book industry. And if you know my children, if you follow me on social medias, you'll understand I'm the dumbest white supremacist ever, because I sullied my white genes with Asian DNA. It's they go to these patent answers because they can't argue against the truth that you're talking. Yeah. Guys like Ethan, guys like Billy Tucci, they've never said, Dennis, you have to think this way, or you're no longer our friend. I posted a picture of me with Eric July at San Diego Comic-Con, and I think half of my liberal friends were like, oh, who is that? Oh, that's that guy? Oh, how was he?
Jimmy Nails real quick. Jimmy Nails says, the irony of three old white men having this conversation is probably lost on the three of you, huh? What do you think about that, Jesse?
First of all, I'm Italian, so I don't know if that classifies me as Caucasian, but
I'm part Native American.
You know what? At the end of the day, I'm just here to provide you a platform to watch and make your decisions on if you then continue to watch. And if you don't, that's okay, because someone else will come in and watch. But I don't think we're on here to get brownie points with anybody or get one more subscriber to my webpage or on my live shows that I sell books on. We're just people that enjoy the industry and decided to do a show that allowed you to get a little bit more information that you don't get from most other shows that are deep dives into the actual industry, not weekend warriors on their YouTube page that have never sold a comic book or never owned a comic book store or don't know how to do FOCs. And so we're just bringing that experience to you. I've done this for 42 years. At the end of the day, if I can do it for another 42 years, I will. But tomorrow or tonight, I got to sell comics. And so that's the goal here for me personally. But as these guys go, listen, we got some stellar guys on here who are dedicated to provide a very good show. It's not like we just come on 1 minute till, right? There's
prepare
planning all week for this.
And
so,
speaking of that,
anyways, my opinion is it doesn't matter who's up here, as long as you're passionate and want to talk about some good comic book therapy, we're good to go.
Amen.
Let me just chime in on the chorus here. The reason I do this show, I've been collecting comic books for over almost 40 years. I've been dealing in comic books for over 30 years. I've owned a retail store now for 19 years. I'm getting old. I'm getting to cashing out time. I want to put this stuff down on a format like YouTube. I want to have a forum to be able to talk to people to get these stories on film And I'm a big proponent of you have to catalog all of these things. And if I happen to be a white man, if I happen to be an old white man, pale and stale and male, so be it. If the stories aren't getting told, they're just going to disappear at a certain point. And, I wanted to get Ethan on because there are more stories about him that aren't true than hearing it from his own mouth with the receipts to say it is true.
Yeah. And the other thing about this channel, you guys, and I say it all the time, there's seats open for just about anybody on this channel. If you want to come on and talk about your feelings on certain things, reach out to us. And if there's a way to get you guys on the show as soon as possible, we're going to do it. We're going to figure it out.
I think the other, Brian, is this. Beyond Wednesdays is a plethora of genre shows. Yep. So you have the industry show, you have your Wednesday night show, your Friday night show, your Saturday night show. So there are a plethora of shows that someone whose ideas that might come into play for that show is possible. We're more deep industry. We want to make sure we have as close to industry as people on here as possible that help this industry grow and get to the next level. I've got to get to my other live show, guys. And
we're going to call it a night right now.
Yeah. We're going to wrap it up and head over to
I
Discord.
learned a lot. Listen, for someone who knew nothing about this, trust me, I am walking away very educated. So I enjoyed the night and I enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah. You guys,
I enjoyed you surviving Texas.
Yes.
Yeah. There you go.
Some of the, I just want to remind everybody to make sure to sub up all the new viewers and hit that like button. Hit the thumbs down. If you didn't like the show, hit the thumbs down too. Yeah. Just do it. Do it either way. I don't care. Here's what some of the guests that we have coming up in the next month or so. Do you guys want to talk about some of those guests that we have coming up in the next month or so?
Sure.
Let's talk about them.
Okay. You got Murat Michaels, Bueller, Ross Ritchie, Rich Johnson, Steve Borak, Tom Hutchinson. Who else am I forgetting? I'm missing 4 or 5 other people.
Yeah, we're missing.
I've got 3 that haven't confirmed a date yet. So
yeah, we're gonna try and get Big Clutch on here, and we're pushing to bring Clutch on with Drew from Wanted Comics. Drew.
Oh, is he? Oh my gosh.
We're hoping. We're crossing our fingers that we might be able to get Drew to come on a show with everybody and talk about the industry. Too great. Yeah. We guys know we love Clutch and Wanted Comics here. And so we're going to try to get them on together at some point also. We have a lot of people. I'm trying to get Steve Says Boom from Torpedo Comics on. He said he would be down to come on too. He's going to let us know. We have some very interesting guests that you might know of, like those guys, and some others that you might not know of that will give some great information about the comic book industry. And that's where you'll find the information every Tuesday night live here on Beyond Wednesdays, and specials like this every once in a while when it's called for, and this was definitely called for tonight. Much love, you guys. You can come hang out with me and Dennis in the Discord after this if you want to for a short period of time, depending on how the conversation goes, or go follow Jesse James on eBay Live tonight. Is that where you're going? Or
eBay Live, folks. I will be on eBay Live. I got 73 hot books, so let's see how we do tonight.
There we go. Much love, you guys. Appreciate you. We're out.